Hello folks, my name is Mark, this is UCD Game Reviews, and today we're looking at Double Dragon for the NES. So for those of you who are not alive in the 80s, this was the game everyone talked about. It was incredibly popular. The arcade version of Double Dragon sucked down quarters like a cheap Thai prostitute, and we gladly gave them because it fucking ruled. So you play as Billy Lee, one half of the Double Dragon karate duo. You still sport the same mullet pompadour hairstyle from the arcade, and the story is presented in this short little cutscene right before the game starts, where a bunch of dickheads show up and kidnap your girlfriend. So today this will be realized by a half-hour-long cinema scene with CGI rendered motion capture models with the actors' digitized likeness mapped onto their faces in front of a multi-million-dollar orchestra and Academy Award-winning dialogue. None of that shit here. Back in 1987, we didn't need no talking in our video games. Just BAM! Bad guys punch the girl in the stomach and drag her ass off over the shoulder caveman style. You then come out of a parking garage and the game starts. No questions, just ass kicking. The NES version of this game has a lot of shortcomings when compared to the arcade version, but it's still a pretty good game in its own right. The biggest difference being that the two-player co-op mode has been taken out. The thing is, the Double Dragon sequels on the NES both managed to fit this in somehow, so we know it was possible. What we did get is a pretty decent, above-average arcade translation. The other change is that your little karate dude now only starts out with one little measly punch and kick, and you have to earn additional moves as you gain points. Eventually you learn uppercuts and roundhouse kicks, headbutts, elbow smashes, body throws, plus one move from the arcade where you can grab some dude's hair and knee them in the face, which is actually very satisfying, and another where you can punch them while on the ground, which was actually taken from an earlier beat-em-up game called Renegade. The reason for this, of course, is that this game and Renegade were made by the same company, that is Technos of Japan, and not only that, but they're actually somewhat tangentially related to the Kuino-kun series of games, which also includes Super Dodgeball, Crash and the Boys Street Challenge, and River City Ransom. Anyway, the graphics look good for an NES game, although there's a hell of a lot of flicker. Only two bad guys seem to ever be on the screen at any given time, and they'll always be clones of the same guy. Like the arcade, you can pick up different weapons, including knives, whips, and bats in large wooden crates. However, the weapons disappear as soon as the enemy who brought it on screen is killed. The music in the game is very good, with some great 8-bit renditions of the arcade tunes. There's also a two-player fighting game mode, which I guess they felt they had to include in order to compensate for the lack of the two-player co-op. And this mode is limited by the fact that each player can only choose the same character. The sprites are a lot larger than in the side-scrolling game, and they control well. You can do a punch and a kick and running attacks, and you can also attack with weapons. But this mode is fun to mess around with, but it's not really, I don't know, it's just a little too primitive to get any lasting gameplay out of. I mean, this was like a fighting game that came out before Street Fighter, so it was very, very primitive. You know, there's no special moves, nothing like that, no victory stances, nothing like that. They would have spent their time better just leaving this out and trying to get the two-player co-op mode into the normal game. But it is what it is. So my only real gripe with this game is that it's just too damn hard. You get 3 lives, you get no continues. Your health is only replenished between rounds, there are no health power-ups anywhere. The first 3 levels are pretty simple, until you get to the end of the 3rd level, and the 3rd level bosses, you have to fight 2 of the Obobo guys at the same time, which are the big buff bald dudes. They come breaking out of this wall, and you have to fight 2 of them, and you seriously have to like knock these guys down 20 times each. It just takes forever. Just over and over, jump kicking them over and over and over. It's like finally they fucking die. And if you don't go through the right hole in the wall, then the whole level ends up like starting over. It's like, shit, if you didn't know this back in the day, like, you would just keep playing and playing and playing until you died, wondering when the shit ended. After this point, there's a lot of weird platform elements that weren't in the arcade game. You know, things like falling stalagmites, and you have to like jump on these moving platforms and climb ladders and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I don't know, I mean, it's not too bad, but it's like, why is all this stuff here? I don't know. Then, when you finally get to the final mission, you encounter this trap wall, which actually was in the arcade, where these blocks push you out and kind of kill you. And the thing is, there's no pattern to this. It's just totally random. Like, sometimes I could just walk right through it, but the vast majority of the time I would just die right here. And this, as a kid, when I played this game back in the day, this is as far as I ever got. I never got past this wall. They just killed me over and over and over and over. If you finally manage to get past all of this stuff, you get to the end and you have to do a boss rush, where you have to fight 2 of the Obobo guys again, each one of them also taking 20 knockdowns in order to kill. Then, you get to fight Machine Gun Willie. Now, unlike everybody else in the game, Willie actually did the smart thing and he brought a gun to the street fight, which means that he can kill you in one shot. I mean, I must have fought this creep 50 times, and I couldn't get past him, and that was like, and until finally there's a trick that I found online where if you just stand in just the perfect spot, he can't shoot you. It's like, oh my god, it's so many, I spent hours trying to get past this shit. Final boss of the game, however, is your brother Jimmy, who's player 2 in the arcade game. And, you know, it still fits in with the arcade somewhat, since in the arcade game, if the 2 players made it to the end, then they had to fight to the death to get the girl. So he's tough, but he's not anywhere close to as tough as how Willie was. Beat him and you get the end. So is this version of Double Dragon worth playing today? I would say yes. It's got above average graphics for the time, it's got really good music, and the playability is top-notch. It's a lot different than other side-scrolling beat-em-ups from this era, like say Final Fight, where you just have an auto combo. Here, your moveset is very diverse. There's lots of different ways to attack, and that's kind of the fun, is all the different ways that you could beat people up and, you know, throw people off of bridges and stuff like that. It's really fun. And, you know, I would say anyone who collects from the NES should probably buy this game. That's all I got, folks. Adios.